everybody. This is Denise Barrett with The Real Deal. I am thrilled to be able to talk with you again today. As always, if you think of a topic that you would like us to cover, just tell us in the comments and we will read that and get that added to our list of conversations to have with you. Today we're talking about new information that has come about as of this summer regarding the representation agreements between buyers, sellers, and their agents. But before we go into that, let's have just a real brief history lesson on buyer representation. So before the 1990s, the listing agreement, the seller side, was the only side that had a representation of a party to the contract. So the listing agent was responsible for getting all of the tasks done from beginning to end, and there's a lot of them. In fact, over here, I'm going to show you a list of the common tasks that need to be done in order to execute a contract from beginning to end. There is 180 tasks on that list. And the buyer in that scenario, in this time period, was kind of on their own. They could have a real estate agent, but they didn't have an agreement with that agent. So there were a number of inherent problems with the system. The first one is that the listing agent, the selling agent, had so much work to do, had so many tasks to complete. It was a very cumbersome process. But more importantly than that, the buyer was unrepresented. He didn't have someone in his corner to protect his interests. Now, the listing agent has always had the responsibility of being honest and fair with both the buyer and seller. But the difference is the listing agent's fiduciary responsibility is with the seller. So this was very much a buyer beware situation. And unfortunately, there were a number of scenarios where buyers were taken advantage of by the selling side. Unfortunately, this meant that there was some litigation filed because buyers were not treated as they should have been in the transaction. So as a result of that action, the realtor community came up with a solution, and that was the shared compensation. So yes, the listing agent has a compensation level with their broker, but they agree to share that commission with an agent who is representing the buyer. This does a couple of things. It cuts that listing realtor's tasks in half, right? They only have to deal with the tasks associated with representing the seller. More importantly than that, though, the buyer now has an advocate in his corner, and his agent or her agent is their fiduciary. That means that their sole concern is the welfare and the benefit of the buyer. So there you go. Now, let's fast forward to today. It has been determined, again, through a process of litigation, that we need to tidy up what that representation looks like. Specifically, who's supposed to do what and how the brokers, agents are going to get paid. So today we're going to be talking specifically about the buyer's agent. So there has been a buyer's representation agreement in effect for a long, long time. The use of it was kind of hodgepodge. Maybe the agent used it, maybe they didn't. You can have agency, meaning I can represent someone without a written agreement, but it was determined that's probably not the best idea. Maybe we should just always put it in writing. So the new legislation has going into effect, and the new documents must be used by August 17th. So the difference between the old buyer's representation agreement and the new buyer's representation agreement. So in the old version, a number of the properties remain the same as the new. So first, the parties. Who's the realtor? Who's the buyer? Secondly, where am I looking? Am I looking all over the state of Texas? Am I looking in certain counties? Or am I representing you for a singular property, one property? And for how long does the realtor represent you? It also goes into how much the realtor is going to be paid as part of the contract. Some of the major differences in the new one are: it identifies what tasks are going to be performed. The previous one didn't. It just said, I represent you for the purposes of buying this house or looking for a house, whatever. The new one says, I can just show you some properties, showing you only, or I can be full service and represent you from showing, negotiating, getting the contract executed, and completing all the tasks it takes to get to the closing table. So you've got two levels of representation. So let's say you start out with a showing agent. I just really want to see some properties this weekend. You have an agreement to do that, that's fine, but you fall in love with one, and now you want to submit an offer. Does that agreement, representation agreement, have to be changed? Yeah, it does. Remember, the agreement specifies what tasks are going to be performed. So it gets updated, that's fine, and you move on your merry way. So first, the parties. Who's the realtor? Who's the buyer? Secondly, where am I looking? Am I looking all over the state of Texas? Am I looking in certain counties? Or am I representing you for the... Speaking of showing houses, this is a big change on the part of the buyer side. A number of the changes in the legislation really don't affect buyers and sellers per se, not their experience. They're administrative and not really visible to our clients, and that's fine. But this one is. Remember, I said that the buyer's agreement previously was kind of in and out. It wasn't mandatory, wasn't necessary, but now it is. And I don't want you to freak out or be panicked when you want to see a property and a buyer's agent says, in order for me to open a door, I need to have a buyer's representation on file. Here's why you don't panic. Number one, it specifies a length of time. So this buyer's agent can represent you for a day, a week, a month, 6 months, whatever you agree on. And remember, you're also specifying what tasks are to be completed. If I only want an agent to show me properties, then there's most likely a flat fee for them to do that for you. And yes, an agreement that says, I will show you this number of houses for this time period, and I expect to be compensated this amount of money. On the full service side, it says, okay, not only will I show you the houses, but I'll negotiate it and get you through the closing table for most likely a percentage of the home price. Well, back in the day, buyers were responsible not only for their own costs, right, the lending costs, they were responsible for closing costs, and they were responsible for paying the buyer's agent. Now, the seller says, all right, I will pay the listing agent, let's say 6% to commission to sell my property. That gets split with the buyer's agent, and that takes that burden off of the buyer. Seller doesn't have to do that, never did have to do that. They often do that because they need an agent to bring a buyer. But here's a change. Because of the new buyer representation agreement, it says specifically the buyer agent is going to be paid, let's say, a percentage of the home's price. So if the agreement says between the buyer and their agent that the buyer's agent is going to get paid 2% of the sales price, the seller's listing agreement says, I'm paying 6%, I can pay up to 3% to the buyer's side, the buyer's agent is going to get 2% because that's the agreement that they signed for. It all may seem like a lot, and I know it's kind of off-putting to have like a first conversation with a realtor to say, hey, I want to go see some houses. I'm thinking about buying. Will you show them to me? Have that agent say, well, yeah, but I need you to sign a contract first. I don't want you to be scared or put off by that conversation. The whole thing is designed to give the buyer a sense of confidence and protection in the home buying process. So we're all figuring out how this best works, the best practices, if you will. But I have no doubt that realtors who have no problem representing and fighting for their clients are going to figure out how to make this new process work. So next time we'll be talking about the seller's representation agreement and what that entails. We'll do that this next time. If you have any questions about a buyer's agent, what they do, what they can do, what they cannot do, just put it in the comments section. Remember, I am in Texas, so the information that I give you will be based on the Texas experience. So in the meantime, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll be talking to you soon. Bye-bye.